Welcome to Lifespan, the weekly podcast that digs up the dirt on the most outrageous, chaotic, and downright WTF lives ever lived.
Uh-huh.
Forget what you learned in school. This is history's unhinged side.
It really is.
Today, we're embarking on a truly bizarre journey. We've got our stack of testimonies right here, and we're going to uncover the wild story of Cleopatra.
It's right, the Nile Queen's wild ride.
Exactly.
And our mission today really is to get past the usual stuff, the beauty, the romance.
Yeah, a Hollywood version.
Precisely. We want to dissect the roller coaster, the family drama, the scandals, the power grabs. We're really looking for those WTF moments.
Okay, let's jump straight in then. Her beginnings. Because even getting born into that family was, well, something else. The Ptolemaic dynasty. They had a, let's say, unique approach to keeping power. Macedonian Greeks ruling Egypt, right?
Yeah.
After Alexander the Great.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating is how hard they tried to stay Greek,
Yeah.
While ruling Egypt, it was this constant balancing act.
Cultural tightrope, yeah.
And a big part of their strategy to keep control, keep the bloodline pure, supposedly, was, well, lots and lots of inbreeding.
You are not kidding. It's like generation after generation marrying siblings, cousins. The family tree looks more like a wreath.
It really does.
And based on the testimonies, it seems pretty likely Cleopatra's own parents were brother and sister.
The probability is very high, yes. I mean, this was the norm for them. Over a dozen of her ancestors did the exact same thing.
Wow.
And, okay, obviously there are the genetic risks involved, which are significant, but maybe just as important, it created this incredibly intense, cutthroat atmosphere within the family.
Like a pressure cooker.
Absolutely. Every single birth, every marriage, even within the family, was like a high-stakes political move, a potentially deadly one.
And Cleopatra getting the throne wasn't exactly a walk in the park either, was it?
Oh, far from it. No smooth coronation here. She was initially married to her younger brother, Ptolemy III.
Standard procedure for them, apparently.
Right. They were supposed to co-rule, but that fell apart almost immediately. Turned into outright conflict.
A civil war, wasn't it? A literal fight for the throne.
Yes, a bitter civil war. And the ruthlessness on both sides is just stark. Eventually, her brother, Ptolemy III, ends up drowned in the Nile.
Okay, so brother number one is out, but then she marries another brother, Ptolemy IV.
Unbelievably, yes, you'd think they'd run out.
Right.
But that marriage didn't stick either. The testimonies strongly point towards her having him killed.
Why? To make room for her son.
Exactly. To elevate Caesarion, her son, with Julius Caesar as her co-ruler, it was, well, incredibly calculated.
Talk about a power move. Does that tell us it was all about her own power, or was there maybe something else, like securing Egypt's future?
That's the million drachma question, isn't it? Was it pure self-preservation and ambition, or was she genuinely trying to ensure a strong succession for Egypt, even if it meant removing family obstacles?
And the family culling didn't stop there, did it? Her sister, Arsinoe.
Arsinoe, too, yeah. She was seen as another rival, another threat. So Cleopatra likely had a hand in her death as well, while Arsinoe was in exile. It's sibling rivalry on an epic, lethal scale.
Okay, so she's basically clawed her way to the top through this incredibly dangerous family dynamic. But now, the shadow of Rome is looming large.
Right, and you have to see this in context. Egypt was getting weaker, Rome was getting stronger, more involved. Cleopatra knew, she must have known, that Egypt's survival depended on having friends in high Roman places.
Which brings us neatly to Julius Caesar.
Her first major Roman connection.
So Caesar rocks up in Alexandria. He's in the middle of his own civil war.
Against Pompey, yeah.
And Cleopatra sees her chance. But how does she even get to him? Her brother's forces are kind of controlling things. This is where the bizarre journey gets legendary. The carpet.
Ah, yes, the carpet story. It's just, the sheer audacity is incredible.
Right.
Knowing she couldn't just walk in, she supposedly gets her attendants to wrap her up. Now, some testimonies say a carpet, others say maybe a linen sack or bedroll.
Details.
But the point is, she gets smuggled past her brother's guards and delivered right into Caesar's private rooms.
Can you imagine being Caesar? Someone unrolls a carpet and boom, there's the Queen of Egypt. What an entrance.
It's unforgettable. Definitely not your standard diplomatic meet and greet. It screams resourcefulness, boldness, a willingness to do absolutely anything.
And it worked, obviously. What was the immediate impact on Caesar?
Oh, it made a massive impression, no question. It wasn't just about politics, though that was key. She needed him to back her claim against her brother.
Which he did?
Which he did. But it also, well, sparked a personal relationship. An affair.
Okay, Scandalous doesn't even begin to cover it. Caesar's married back in Rome.
For Calpurnia, yes.
And now he's having this very public affair with a foreign queen who then has his son, Caesarion. Rome must have gone nuts. Why was this so dangerous for Caesar politically?
The Roman senators were deeply uneasy. I mean, really uneasy. They already thought Caesar was getting way too powerful, maybe acting like a king.
Which was a big no-no in the Republic.
A huge no-no. So, Cleopatra hanging around Rome for extended periods, the baby, Caesarion. It all fueled fears that Caesar was planning some kind of dynasty, a Hellenistic-style monarchy maybe, with a foreign queen involved.
Directly challenging Roman values.
Absolutely. And then, just to, pour gasoline on the fire, Caesar puts up a gilded statue of Cleopatra.
Where?
In the Temple of Venus Genetrix, his divine ancestor.
You cannot be serious. In a Roman temple, a statue of his foreign mistress.
It was unbelievably provocative, a public declaration of, something. Affection, maybe, ambition. Either way, it just pushed his opponents further. It definitely contributed to the conspiracy against him.
And then, bang, Ides of March, Caesar is assassinated.
Yep, knife emoji, Roman style.
So Cleopatra, who is a master survivor, it seems, has to pivot. Fast.
Yeah.
Her main Roman ally is gone. She needs a new one.
Enter Mark Antony, another powerful Roman general, one of Caesar's key guys.
And if the carpet entrance was audacious, her meeting with Antony was pure theater.
Oh, the arrival in Tarsus in 41 BCE, it's legendary for a reason. It was completely staged for maximum impact.
Tell us about it.
Picture this. She sails up the River Cydnus on this incredible golden barge, purple sails, silver oars beating time to music.
Wow.
And Cleopatra herself, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, Venus to the Romans, surrounded by attendants dressed as cupids and nymphs.
She knew her audience. Antony saw himself as Dionysus, right?
Exactly, the god of wine and revelry. So Aphrodite arriving to meet Dionysus, it was brilliantly calculated seduction, and apparently Antony was completely bowled over.
They definitely clicked. Sparks flew.
Instantly. Their affair started pretty much right away, and they spent that famous winter together back in Alexandria.
Living it up with their drinking club. What was it called?
The Inimitable Livers.
Seriously.
Seriously, sounds like quite the club, doesn't it? Nights of feasting, drinking, parading through the city in disguise.
But was this just fun and games, or did this lifestyle have political fallout back in Rome?
Oh, absolutely. While they were living lavishly, Antony's rival, Octavian Caesar's adopted son, was busy painting a picture in Rome.
Propaganda time.
Big time. Octavian portrayed Antony as neglecting his Roman duties, going native, being corrupted by this decadent Eastern queen and her foreign ways.
Setting the stage.
But then things got even more scandalous. Antony was actually married at the time.
Right, to Octavia.
Who was Octavian's sister.
Oh, boy. Talk about awkward family dinners.
Well, Antony essentially dumps Octavia, sends her back to Rome, and then, despite Roman law and custom, he actually marries Cleopatra according to Egyptian rites.
It's not just a personal insult to Octavia. That's a massive political slap in the face to Octavian and Rome itself.
A huge diplomatic blunder, or maybe a deliberate provocation, and then they have 3 children together.
Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. More potential heirs.
Exactly. A potential rival dynasty. This is looking really bad from Rome's perspective. And then came the absolute tipping point.
The donations of Alexandria.
The donations of Alexandria in 34 BCE, this was just jaw-dropping. Antony holds this massive public ceremony, basically a mock Roman triumph in Alexandria.
Okay.
And he declares Cleopatra Queen of Kings, Caesarion King of Kings. And then he proceeds to just give away huge swaths of Roman territory, Rome considered its sphere of influence in the East. Armenia, Parthia, Syria, Cyprus.
He's just handing them out to Cleopatra and their kids.
Declaring them rulers of these kingdoms, some of which Rome hadn't even fully conquered yet. It was a direct challenge to Roman authority, Roman territory, everything.
Okay, that's it. Octavian must have had a field day with that back in Rome.
Oh, it was the perfect propaganda gift.
Yeah.
He could now easily paint Antony as a traitor, completely under Cleopatra's spell, giving away Roman lands to a foreign woman and her children. Public opinion in Rome swung decisively against Antony.
War was inevitable now.
Completely inevitable. Octavian got the Senate to declare war technically against Cleopatra, not Antony, which was clever politics, and it all led to the final confrontation.
The Battle of Actium, 31 BCE.
The decisive naval battle. And what's really striking is that Cleopatra wasn't just waiting back in Egypt. She was there. At Actium.
She commanded ships.
She commanded her own squadron of Egyptian warships, a significant part of their combined fleet. She was right in the thick of it.
But it didn't go well.
No, it was a disaster for them. Octavian's fleet, led by the brilliant Admiral Agrippa, completely outmaneuvered and crushed them.
Antony and Cleopatra.
They managed to break through the Roman lines with a portion of the fleet, including Cleopatra's ships and the war chest, but the rest of their forces were destroyed or surrendered. They fled back to Egypt, defeated. Their dream of ruling the East was over.
Such a dramatic fall. But okay, amidst all this high-stakes romance and political maneuvering, it's easy to forget. She wasn't just some pawn or seductress. The testimonies emphasize her intellect, right?
Hugely important. We absolutely have to talk about this. She was far more than just the relationships. She was exceptionally intelligent, incredibly well-educated.
Like fluent in multiple languages.
Possibly up to a dozen. Greek, obviously, but also Egyptian, and this is huge. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler in nearly 300 years to actually bother learning the language of the Egyptian people they ruled.
Wow. That must have made a difference.
Immense. Imagine the connection that builds, the respect it shows for Egyptian culture. Her predecessors relied entirely on Greek. Learning Egyptian was a politically savvy move, likely boosting her popularity among her native subjects.
Bridging that gap between the Greek rulers and the Egyptians.
Exactly. And beyond languages, her education was broad: mathematics, philosophy, oratory, astronomy. She was a genuine intellectual.
And sharp politically, too. You could argue those relationships with Caesar and Antony, while maybe passionate, were also fundamentally strategic.
Oh, absolutely calculated. She needed Roman power to secure her throne initially, and then to try and protect Egypt's independence, or at least autonomy, as Rome grew ever more dominant. She was playing an incredibly difficult game of diplomacy and survival.
Right, trying to keep Egypt from just being swallowed whole by Rome.
Precisely. And her reign wasn't just about foreign affairs. There's evidence of economic reforms, building projects. She seems to have been a capable administrator focused on Egypt's stability and prosperity, too.
And doing all this as a woman, in a world run almost entirely by men, especially Roman men who weren't exactly known for embracing powerful foreign queens.
That's a crucial layer. She constantly battled sexism and xenophobia, particularly from Rome. Octavian's propaganda machine relentlessly attacked her gender and her foreignness.
Portraying her as this dangerous temptress.
Exactly. But within Egypt, she seems to have cleverly used Egyptian traditions to her advantage, identifying herself with the goddess Isis, for example.
Isis, the mother goddess, magic, all that.
Yes, a very powerful and popular deity. By linking herself to Isis, she tapped into deep-rooted Egyptian beliefs, bolstering her own authority and legitimacy in the eyes of her people. It created this image of divine right, almost.
So while Rome was pushing the wicked foreign seductress narrative,
within Egypt, the perception might have been quite different. Perhaps a divinely sanctioned ruler, a protector figure.
it's fascinating how different those views could be. And even some Romans, like Plutarch, acknowledged there was more to her than just looks.
Right. Plutarch basically says her actual beauty wasn't the main thing. It was her charisma, her conversation, her intelligence. The whole package was captivating.
And those coin portraits we have, they don't exactly show a delicate beauty, do they?
Not always, no. Some show quite strong features, a prominent nose, almost masculine profile sometimes. It suggests she might have been deliberately projecting an image of strength, authority, maybe even mirroring some Hellenistic kingly imagery rather than just conventional female beauty.
Adding to that image, those dramatic entrances we talked about, the carpet, the barge.
Pure spectacle. She knew the power of image, of theater and politics. It wasn't just about seduction. It was about creating awe, reinforcing that larger-than-life persona, maybe hinting at that divine connection with Isis.
And then there are the darker whispers about poisons.
Yes. The testimonies mention her interest in toxicology. There are even stories, maybe just rumors, of her experimenting with different poisons, possibly on prisoners, to see their effects.
Yikes. Pragmatic ruler or something more sinister.
It hints at a certain ruthlessness, perhaps, a willingness to understand and maybe even wield dangerous knowledge. We also know she wasn't just interested in poison, she actually wrote books. Or treatises, anyway, on medicine, remedies, even cosmetics and hairstyling. It shows this intellectual curiosity extended to practical matters, too.
What a complex figure. Okay, so Actium was the end of the dream. Octavian's forces eventually close in on Alexandria. We're reaching the final act. And her death. It's probably the most famous part of her story, but maybe not as straightforward as we think.
The classic story, the one everyone knows, is the asp, the Egyptian cobra smuggled in, maybe in a basket of figs. She lets it bite her. It's dramatic, symbolic.
The symbol of Egyptian royalty, right? A dignified way out.
Exactly. But even in ancient times, there were doubts. Writers like Strabo and Plutarch mention other possibilities. Maybe a toxic ointment she applied, or poison hidden in a hollow hairpin or comb.
So not necessarily the snake.
Not necessarily. The snake story is potent, but the physical evidence would be hard to conceal, and Octavian might have preferred a less theatrical end for her. Some modern scholars even debate if Octavian had a more direct hand in it, ensuring she wouldn't be alive to be paraded in his triumph through Rome.
That would have been the ultimate humiliation for her.
Absolutely. So whatever the exact method, her choice to die rather than be captured speaks volumes about her pride, her refusal to be defeated and displayed as a trophy.
And she wanted to be buried with Antony.
That was reportedly her final wish, yes. Which, if true, underscores the depth of their bond, despite all the political chaos. Her death wasn't just personal tragedy, though. It was the end.
The end of the Ptolemaic dynasty.
300 years of Greek rule in Egypt. Gone. And Egypt itself, it becomes just another Roman province, a hugely significant moment in history.
Cleopatra dies. But her story, man, it just keeps going, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Her image has shifted so much over time.
Constantly reinvented.
Yeah.
You have the initial Roman version, the dangerous, manipulative enemy, designed to justify their conquest.
Propaganda, like we said.
Definitely. And probably very different from how Egyptians saw her, although sadly we have very little direct evidence of that perspective.
Then later.
Well, the Renaissance sees her differently, often romanticized, maybe a tragic figure. Shakespeare, of course.
Antony and Cleopatra, yeah.
And then you get into modern times, Hollywood especially loves her, usually focusing on the glamour, the seduction. Elizabeth Taylor, right?
The iconic image for many people.
For sure. And even more recently, there have been a really important, sometimes controversial discussions about her ethnicity, her agency, how historical bias has shaped everything we think we know about her. She remains relevant.
Absolutely. Okay, before we wrap this bizarre journey up, let's hit some rapid-fire fascinating facts, some lesser-known bits from the testimonies.
Okay, trivia time.
We mentioned the language is a huge diplomatic tool.
Crucial. Direct communication, no translators needed, big advantage.
The coins, the prominent nose, strong features, challenging the beauty myth.
Suggests a deliberate image of power, not just a lure.
Those dramatic entrances, her signature move, basically.
He definitely knew how to make an impression.
And the chilling possibility she was involved in the deaths of all three siblings.
Yeah. Ptolemy III, Ptolemy IV, Arsinoe. It highlights the sheer brutality of Ptolemaic power politics. Survival often meant eliminating rivals, even family.
Okay, here's one I hadn't heard.
Mm-hmm.
Did she really influence the Roman calendar?
There's a strong theory that she, or maybe her Alexandrian astronomers, introduced the concept of the leap year based on Egyptian solar calendar knowledge to Julius Caesar, who then implemented it in his Roman calendar reform.
No way. That's incredible, if true.
If true, yeah. A lasting legacy hidden in plain sight.
And she had her own perfume factory.
Yeah.
Was into fragrances.
Apparently so. Fascinated by scents, experimented with them, adds a very human touch to this powerful queen.
And the eye makeup, the iconic kohl liner, not just cosmetic.
Well, the lead compounds in traditional kohl might have actually had some antibacterial properties, offering protection against common eye infections in the Nile region. So, beauty and practicality, maybe, with some long-term lead poisoning risks, probably.
Wow. Okay, so summing this all up, what's the takeaway? Cleopatra's life. It really was a bizarre journey.
It absolutely was. Just this incredible mix of high-stakes politics, ambition, scandal, intellect, romance, tragedy. It's got everything.
She pushed boundaries constantly. As a woman, as a ruler, dealing with this behemoth, Rome.
She really did. She defied norms. She challenged an empire. She used her intelligence and her charisma in ways that few figures in history ever have. And the mysteries that still surround her, especially her death, just add to the fascination.
Yeah, her wild ride is definitely a reminder that history isn't always neat and tidy.
Yeah.
It's often messy, unpredictable, and way more unhinged than the textbooks let on.
Couldn't agree more. Which leads to maybe a final thought for our listener.
Ooh, a provocative one.
Let's try. Given how skilled Cleopatra was at crafting her own image, using spectacle, maybe even propaganda, if she'd had the chance to write her own history, control her own narrative for us today, what story would she have told? What parts of her life, her reign, do you think she would have emphasized? And maybe more interestingly, what would she have downplayed or left out completely?
That's a great question to ponder. What would Cleo's version sound like?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Well, that's all the time we have for this bizarre journey. Share, rate, and follow Lifespan for more wild stories.